soon as we set it to do more often, one of us will start having an appointment every other Tuesday or something.
I know. Okay. So I close Safari. I will record this too. I wonder if I can record it on here. All right. Okay, so welcome to Creating Your Future Now. This is Kristine Madera and Deb St. Hilaire, and we're going to have a great conversation today. But before we do that, Deb, why don't you introduce yourself so we know who we're talking to?
Okay, I'm Deb St. Hilaire. I'm the founder of My Body, Mind, Spirit. I'm a women's coach, invigorator, and uniter of women for the good of all mankind.
Uniting women for the good of all mankind?
For everybody, for the good of humankind. Yes. Yes. Mankind too, because
yes, because that's what we need. Multi-kind.
Yes.
All right, so I am Kristine Madera, and I am a hypnotherapist and a podcaster and a writer. And really my big focus is how to create a better world, or a world that is grounded in the value of well-being, personal and collective well-being, so that we have a different value system with which to create our future. So anyway, we are here really talking about how we take those steps and how we make those choices to create our future. And we're talking today about how to use your body as technology. And so what I mean by that is we don't necessarily think about our body as like a biotechnological system. We think of our body as like, it's our body. It's an extension of our personality. It's an extension of, or it's this, sometimes people call it a meat suit that we walk around in. But really your body has trillions of different things going on at any one point in time. And it has a lot of different feedback loops that are happening. And those feedback loops work to move you toward greater health and regeneration, or toward greater like disintegration and degeneration. And so thinking about your body and how it's moving in one direction or another can really help you to make some good, solid choices to move into that regenerative state, because, nothing ever stands still. Like balance is a complete illusion. You're always either moving up or moving down, or you're inhaling or you're exhaling or something like that. Am I moving around too much?
No, it was me. Because balance is an illusion.
Oh, got it. Yes. Well, balance is an illusion. So you were talking about a book you're reading that talks about this. Tell us a little bit about that.
The thing I love is that even though I didn't know how to prepare, I prepared without even knowing it.
Isn't that great?
And we sync like that very well. I love that. So one of the things, I'm reading a book called You Happier by Dr. Daniel Amen. And Amen, I don't know how he says it, but we think of ourselves as, this is my head, this is my stomach, these are my legs. And part of that we blame on, I say that I blame it on specialists, because if we have a headache, they don't look at our bionome to see what we're eating. And if I have a sore foot, very, very infrequently do they think it has something to do with my bionome. So all of it's tied together, and we are intrinsically, like you said, going in regeneration, or the opposite. So what would you pick? So Dr. Amen talks about all the things that we would talk about with, because our brain is in charge of our whole hormonal system, and our guts are in charge of everything we eat and where it goes. And so it all comes down to blood and guts, doesn't it? I'm just saying.
And it's interesting because you're right that the brain kind of operates things, but it's actually like the glands within the brain. Like we think about the brain, we think, well, my thinking mind must operate things, but that's not true. Because
no, it's not.
It's the whole system that operates within its own feedback loop. So you don't have to think about, oh, my breathing right now. Oh, I need to digest my food.
Thank goodness we don't have to think about that.
Yeah, we'd all be dead. So it's that it's this amazing, beautiful piece of technology. And you're right, everything is deeply interconnected. And with specialists and other ideas about our bodies, we tend to think about where we're experiencing something is where the problem is.
Exactly.
And there's so many ways that's not true. So there's referred pain. So if you have pain like here, it could be coming from, here. I'm trying to stay in the picture.
Right. Your lungs, it could be back pain could be coming from your abdomen or your lungs.
Low back
or even
pain
your heart, actually. Yes.
Yeah, your heart can start lots of stuff. Your low back pain can come from an ankle or a walking gait that's out of control. So there's all kinds of different ways that we're connected. But the whole idea that I really seized on recently were the ideas around feedback loops. And we don't always understand how our own body's feedback loops work because everything is so interconnected. And it's not as simple as, oh, if I'm looking for more antioxidants, all I need to do is eat more blueberries. Like different things work for different people in different ways. And where for some people, more of one thing is actually really helpful. For another person, that same thing could be really harmful, depending on how that person's feedback loops are working. So,
so it all comes into know your body, doesn't it?
It comes into know your body, but it also comes, and I think knowing your body is really beginning to pay attention to your body, because so often when we want to know something, we'll look outside of ourselves. We'll look to Google, or we'll look to, what some article has said about something, or the next greatest weight loss technique, or, whatever it happens to be, the best workout for you. And working out, I mean, I was a fitness professional for a long time.
Me too, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's right. And so, what's helpful and good for one person can be really damaging for another person, even if they look very similar. It's very similar people. It's not that one person's fit and one person's not fit. It's one person's body thrives under a certain set of circumstances, and another person's body thrives under another set of circumstances.
Right. And it's also their mental attitude toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like you were saying, to know your body is to, try different things with the idea that, okay, I'm going to see how this is working, and I'm going to really be attentive to what my body is telling me versus what my mind is telling me that my body should be doing because I'm following what Google told me to do.
Exactly. One of the things that I teach being a nutritional consultant is to keep a food journal. Because we pay attention to things that maybe make us feel bad, but we only do that once. I don't feel so good. What did you just eat? Well, if it happens repetitively and you've kept a food journal and you see that every time you eat an avocado, you get an upset stomach, you know to stop eating avocados instead of thinking it's just random.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't think about the things that make us feel good. Wow, when I eat a half a grapefruit for breakfast, I am like in my zone for way past lunch, but I don't write that down, know? Yeah. So that's one of the small parts of getting to know your body from the inside.
Yes. And really also paying attention to very simple things like breathing. So when I used to work at the Ritz-Carlton in the fitness, domain, and we get a lot of, high powered people coming through and all this stuff. And when people would ask me, oh, I'm having this is going on and this is going on and this is going on. I'm like, okay, we're going to start with the breath. They're like, I know how to breathe in, breathe into the baby. And I'm like, well, let's do this anyway and see what happens. And so just that whole act of removing your breath from the chest, and then, where we usually breathe in and out through the chest here.
Yes.
And then if you can breathe that down into the belly, and some people can't get to the belly right away. Like sometimes the diaphragm is so locked up from old trauma, from fear, from all kinds of things, that when you start to use the diaphragm, which is a great way to change a specific feedback loop in the body, which we'll talk about in a few minutes or sometime in here. But if you go from the front of the chest in and out to opening up the side rib cage, you open up out to the side as Pilates breathing, right? opening out to the side and in. It deepens the breath a little bit. It expands your lungs. It moves air into places that sometimes we don't have air.
Right.
And then you can begin to move the breath downward. But when you can get to the diaphragm, which is the muscle that pulls your breath downward. So, when it contracts as it pulls downward and it relaxes, it comes upward. So it pulls your breath down toward your hips and releases your breath back up. And it's more than just like taking a deep breath. That particular muscle activates your parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
So it tells your body, oh, we are calming down now. We are moving into the feedback loop of regeneration. And if you can move into that feedback loop of regeneration more and more, your body begins to build the habit of regeneration versus the habit of degeneration, which is supported by that shallow breathing. Right. I mean, as simple as that. And it's a huge game changer for people, especially people who are suffering from chronic stress.
Yes. And that working with professional women, that is one of the first things that I teach, to stop and take a good deep breath all the way down. And so many times, you are absolutely right, they don't even know how to do it. And so the way that I teach them is to focus where the air is going and then to let it out the other way.
Okay, explain that.
So you breathe in through your nose, into your chest, into your diaphragm, into your abdomen. And of course, you expand in the sides and you really focus on where that air is. And then slowly you let it out through your stomach area, then your diaphragm, then your chest, then your throat, then your nose.
Yeah.
And if you do that, if you are totally focused on that, you have no choice but to calm down. Yeah. You're sending a different message to your brain, which stops those bad hormones from coming out. No, the cortisol will just stop.
Oh, yeah, it does. Everything shifts.
Simple. And I run experiments because I consider myself a guinea pig. And I often do my VO2 max and I check my oxygen level. And just by doing one simple breath, your oxygen level can go up 5 points. It can go from 85 to 90. Usually mine's around 97 and I get it up to 100 like that now because I've been doing it for. And why is that good? Why is it good?
Yeah, everything works better when you have more oxygen.
And that's the regeneration.
Yeah, that's the regeneration. So, and then the whole idea of regeneration too, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. And we've talked about this in terms of the earth as well. Because one of the things that I'd like this to be an extension of, and then another conversation, is that, as we learn to operate in our own regenerative system, then we can begin to see how to better contract human problems so that Earth can come back toward its own regeneration system.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
I don't think we can do it. We're only really in charge of human activity, but we can begin to pull back from the human activities that send Earth into a degenerative state and trust and hope that Earth still has enough ability to regenerate herself. But it really starts with understanding your own body and what regenerates you. So regeneration from a body perspective is when your digestion is working well. It is when your breathing is working well. And fundamentally, the way I describe regeneration is that you are adding more resources to your body than you are using up.
I like that.
And it doesn't, like, in a moment, just like we said with balance, like balance is a kind of an illusion, because at some times you're going to be using more resources when you're under stress, when you're talking, when you're jogging, when you're doing some of these things,
when you're on a boat,
when you're all kinds of ways that you use your body, and that we're using up more resources than you can correct. Poor sleep and things then doesn't bring your resources back. So when you do that, it's important to come back into a regenerative state. And that's where I think we've really forgotten what to do. We hard charge and then we kind of come back into what seems like a state of rest, but we're still breathing poorly. We still have racing thoughts. We're still coming into emotions that are highly resource using, like, shame and guilt and fear and anger and those kinds of things. And so really beginning to pay attention to what actually brings your body into that parasympathetic nervous system state where you are creating the resources, you're rebuilding your bones, you're cleaning out the plaque in the brain, which happens when you sleep. And some of these other things that we need in order not just to reset, but to actually move into that place where we're moving toward greater health, over, net greater health, so that we have more space that we can really use up a lot of resources because we are rebuilding those resources. So you can work harder if you like to work. You can exercise, and you get more effective exercise because you really have that, you can really give up that energy and exercise because your body knows, okay, we're going to regenerate. It won't be a problem. I don't have to fight for every last little bit of thing that's moving out. So one of the things that you mentioned, like cortisol and adrenaline and some of these other hormones and such, are big things that take energy from the body, that use up resources. And so the more you use those up, the more you have to come into that regenerative state. So talk a little bit about cortisol, because that's kind of the hidden stress hormone.
And I think it's the one that is the most well-known as well. So back in the day, we needed cortisol, and we still need it. It's not something that we just put in our pocket and forget about. There are times when we need it. But back in the cave days, we would see a huge animal coming at us, and we would run to get away from us. Well, what helps kick you into that really fast pace, suddenly that burst of energy is cortisol. It's fear. It's you don't know what's going to happen, and so you want to get away from that animal. And then when the animal is away from you and you're out of danger, back in the Stone Age, you went about your business. And all animals do that. When they sense that they're out of danger, they go back into homeostasis and go on grazing or whatever. In modern days, we do not do that. There might be somebody sitting next to you at work that chews their gum too loudly. There might be somebody that you eat dinner with frequently that makes sounds when they chew. It could be any little thing. Well, watching the news causes a rush. And watching scary movies is an adrenaline rush. So our bodies are in this constant state of, picture a tap dripping cortisol all the time instead of turning on and turning off. And how does it affect you? You age quicker. Your brain suffers. Your circulation isn't as good, because when you're afraid, all the blood goes to your extremities and nothing in your brain. It's not a good time to make decisions. So it's just so many things. It's aging us quicker. If you look at somebody that has meditated and eaten properly and taken good care of, I'm not saying that they never had any fun. I'm not saying that. It's because laughter is such a huge part of it, isn't it?
It is, yes.
And somebody that is grumpy all the time, eats a lot of processed foods, it's amazing just looking at them, how you can pick that person out.
Yeah.
Pick them out.
So, and I call cortisol the hidden stress hormone because, like you were talking about, when the big animal comes to me, and when that big rush, that's adrenaline. So, that's that immediate kick. We've all had adrenaline things. You cannot mistake adrenaline. Adrenaline it's like this giant rush of hormones that gets you to fight, flight, flee, whatever it happens to be.
Right.
And then cortisol. But the cortisol is that one that it's not quite as urgent as adrenaline. So we don't notice it as much, especially because oftentimes, in my experience in working with people as well, that people will almost self-medicate with cortisol. So
that's true. Cortisol junkies. They're
cortisol junkies, and that's why it's hidden for me, because so often, if you're running low on energy, and if people are chronically low on energy because they're using up too many resources and their body just cannot keep up, one of the like hidden strategies that people use is cortisol. We use it almost like caffeine, only less intentionally than caffeine. So you stay in that grumpy state. You get angry at somebody, chewing their gum. You kind of, your self-talk keeps you revved up enough so that you can function and you don't just crash.
Right. Let alone road rage or anything else.
Yeah. So there's the adrenaline high and that real urgency surge. And then there's the regenerative state, which honestly, when you first start really focusing on that, like you might find that you just collapse because you go into sleep. Your body really has to spend some time repairing so that you can come into a better balance with that. But cortisol is one of those things like, you might not be angry. You might not be yelling at somebody. You might not even use caffeine like that, not even have that going on. But if you're staying in that low level stress state where you're constantly generating cortisol, that's a really toxic state over the long term because of aging and things like that. But it's the one thing that if you can begin to shift your unnecessary cortisol states into a more of a parasympathetic nervous system state, that rest and digest state, like that's the place where you can turn, a body that's slowly moving into degeneration into one that is moving back to regeneration. To me, that's like, that is the key, more than a specific food, although good food in general is helpful, more than an exact number of exercise, as much as exercise is also helpful. Like that's the one habit, because it's every single day, all throughout the day.
And that just by doing that one simple thing, it has a total effect on you. You're absolutely right. And if you reduce that fight, flight, or freeze and that constant cortisol drip, all of a sudden you're more aware of, I'm going to walk today. It makes me, instead of focusing on because you're addicted to feeling depleted, you're addicted to getting that rush, you start changing the way that you want your body to feel, and you start doing things that makes your body feel good. So I've seen a lot of people lose weight without even trying once that shifted. I've seen complexions clear up. I've seen bitch face turn into smiles. I mean, just by changing that one thing and learning those deep breathing techniques. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is the one feedback loop. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, but it's the one feedback loop that can really change a lot of things for people. And so aside from the deep breathing, because that, if you get that habit in, and honestly, when you first start shifting, like any addiction, from cortisol as that sort of false energy, because we're using stress hormone to give us energy rather than using our regenerative system to give us energy, right? So it's like we're using a battery for energy versus sunlight for energy. I lost my train of thought with that one. Anyway, so
you start feeling like it's not right. It's not you. It's not how.
Well, there's that part, and then, but you also feel like, when you stop feeding your body with the cortisol, oftentimes like, you're here and your body's depletion level is really here, but you're not experiencing the depletion level because you're artificially powering yourself with cortisol.
Yes.
So when you begin to change that dynamic and it drops down, it's almost like, you hear about like those healing crises that people go through if they're on a fast or if they're on a cleanse or something, that all of a sudden with this new information coming in of being in regeneration versus degeneration or cortisol, or of having all of this raw food versus something else, like everything begins to shift and change. So you can really drop down. I mean, it's good to do it like, on vacation or
right.
You have at least a weekend to begin to recuperate, because it takes some time, it takes some effort, it takes some practice to come back to that place where you're really moving into that parasympathetic nervous system state and building up your resources so that you can operate your body and your life from that place of regeneration. So it's not like if you start today, tomorrow you're going to be there, usually, unless you are already not working on that or not operating out of cortisol all that much. But what are some of the other things that you know or you talk with people about how to break that cortisol feedback loop?
To stay away from people that anger you or don't believe in you or do mean things or whatever. The frenemies, so often it's frenemies. If your phone rings and you go, oh, that's a person that you shouldn't really talk to very often.
Yeah.
And when you do, prepare yourself that you're not going to let anything that they say bother you. It's that simple to prepare yourself. Another really good thing is stretching, but that goes along with the breath, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And I know a lot of times if I have a stressful situation, I'll go in another room and I'll take a couple deep breaths and really stretch. And what do babies do? They stretch.
Yeah.
And it's just good for you all around because again, it's that blood flow, you're getting all that going again, and you're getting the difference between knowing what the muscle feels like stretched and what it feels like relaxed.
Yeah. And it reoxygenates your muscles too when you stretch. So it gets that oxygen moving. And all animals stretch, like when they get up, after
our
a nap,
dogs,
they all stretch.
Yes. So stretching is a really good thing. I think that's one of the reasons why yoga is so good for you. If you know people that have done yoga for years, they're in amazingly good health. And just getting in tune with your body and knowing what it feels like. I know a lot of times in being in the fitness industry, you have those people that go gung-ho because they have to fit into this dress by their wedding day. And then afterwards, they just go back to how they were.
Yeah.
But if you do it gradually and you start seeing the results of what walking 2 miles a day will do, you think, wow, if I can do this, look this much better and feel this much better with 2 miles a day, what's 3 miles going to do? And it's more of a healthy attitude and a growth mindset rather than a have to. It's I want to because I see what it's doing for me. And food will naturally fall into that because you see how it feels to feel like that. As opposed to.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've had this as well, as a fitness instructor too. You get people who come to your class or whatever, and they do, like I had this woman that used to come to my spin class. It just drove me nuts because she'd come to spin and she'd go through the whole spin class. And every time we slowed down to kind of let the breath go down, she wouldn't slow down. Like she would just work harder because in her mind, it was the work. It was the pushing. It was that gave her the results that she wanted. And so at the end of class, when we slow down and things like that and stretch, she would continue to do hills on the spin bike. And I have people as well that can do the same thing with lifting weights. They'll lift the weights, they'll work really hard all the way till that end, and then they don't do the things like the slowing the heart down because that releases the lactic acid from your muscles so that your muscles can repair. And the stretching then oxygenates the muscles so the muscles can repair. And so one of the things I like to tell people is that it's not in the lifting of the weight or the working of the heart in a spin class or whatever that actually builds the health. It is doing that which breaks something down. Right? It breaks down the heart muscle. It breaks down the muscle that you're working. It causes all kind of surge of chemicals and things that use up a lot of resources in your body. It is the rest between the workouts. It is once you've lifted that muscle, to your maximum capacity and the 3 days you have before you pick that up again, the growth happens in the time in between. So it is not that go, gung ho, hurt, do it till it hurts, no pain, no gain, that actually does the work. It is having that effort and expending, a good amount of effort and then coming into that state where your body can repair, because that's how you build, muscles that actually are healthy. And that's how you build cardio health that is actually beneficial for you versus something that always keeps your heart under unnecessary stress.
And it's sustainable.
And it's sustainable. Yeah.
You don't hurt yourself.
Yes.
It's all these things that really they're not talked about enough. They're not,
No.
and there's times when you do know what's right, but there's a lot of people that are stubborn, like you said, that lady on the bike, that she's going to do it her way no matter what, and she'll keep doing it that way until she either gets hurt or exhausted.
Well, and she, of everybody that ever came to my class, she looked, and I knew what her age was, but she looked 10 to 15 years older than she was.
Mm-hmm.
She looked in horrible health. She always looked gaunt. She always looked, I tried talking to her, but it just didn't really work.
Right.
But because it was a drive, it was kind of like an addiction to exercise, which was a different approach than what I could get through with her with. Anyhow, but yeah, it is, and it's like that in other areas of our life as well. We're so used to like doing. We wake up in the morning and we do until at night we fall asleep in front of the TV or something like that. And we think that it's all this doing that's getting us what we want.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the whole feedback loop of really not allowing any kind of spaciousness for anything new, for any new thoughts, for any new ahas, for any new habits, for any new anything. And so the whole idea of bringing this into other parts of your life, of creating space and time to be in that regenerative state, to be in that regenerative place. Because if you go all day, your sleep is not going to be as regenerative
Mm-hmm.
as it could be as if you take 10 to 15 minutes several times a day to just, chill, have your little, not, a coffee break, but have your little close your eyes and take some deep breaths.
Right. And if you look at our society as a whole, as opposed to societies in Europe that have a siesta, or take a break,
long dinners with that take 3 hours because it's all social,
and yet they're not overweight. It's awesome. Like the French, for example, their French food, if we ate French food all the time and we kept going, we would be so obese. But because of their attitude toward it, and they eat very slowly and they relish every bite.
And it's a social thing.
And they don't supersize anything.
Yeah.
It's totally different. Their outlook on it is totally different. And I blame part of that on society. But you know what? There comes a point in your life where you have to take stock of yourself and know what's right for you, and how you can achieve homeostasis and live a balanced life in every way. And that's how you're going to feed that loop positively and stay grounded and have room to have thoughts and to think and to do a crossword puzzle and to, use your creative side and your logical side. And it's so important. It's so important. And if you're on the go all the time, you're always thinking about work, and you're always thinking how to make this person happy, and you're always thinking you have to take this person there and this person there, and you just, no wonder. It's no wonder.
Yeah, it is. And so you brought up a good point, because we've been talking a lot about kind of the physical aspects of coming into that more regenerative state. But there's also a lot that we can do mentally and emotionally. So, you talked about, or we've both talked about negative people or things that keep you emotionally revved up. And so realizing that emotions are also a feedback loop. And so when you've got, fear-based or cortisol-based or stress-based emotions, that's, the flow and the information of stress hormones in your body. So whether you experience it as an adrenaline surge, as anger, as fear, as jealousy or disappointment, or, resentment, any of those things, the basic information that you're giving your body is we are in a stress state.
Yes.
And so when you recognize that, and you can kind of breathe out of it and say, okay, what's a different emotion I can choose? And you can just choose something. I mean, gratitude is a big one, because that surges the chemistry of regeneration in your body. It's a very beneficial supportive hormones. That just getting those kinds of shifts, knowing, oh, okay, I am feeding myself stress hormones right now because of my thoughts and my emotions.
And you can change it like that.
And you can change it like that by taking a deep breath, cut that, you bring that to to neutral. And then you start taking more deep breaths and you choose something positive.
Right.
You choose a different thought, choose a different emotion, change the feedback loop intentionally.
Right.
Your thoughts and your feelings.
And you can train yourself to do that. You can, and I do this with so many people that no one tells you that. No one tells you to see the good in the situation.
Right.
I think more now, but it's always prepare for the worst. You know, it's always a negative connotation of some type. Why prepare for the worst? Why not prepare for the best? See the best happening, and maybe it will. And I had a boss, and I've been like this for a long time. And I don't know if it was my parents that taught me to always see the good, always see the positive, always see what you learned when something bad happens. Why did you have to go through that? What did you learn from that? And don't do it again. But I had this boss that for some reason did not like me. One of the few times I was in corporate America, and he did not like me. And in meetings, he would pick on me. And he would call me in his office and yell at me. And I kept trying to look at the good in him. And sometimes it would come down to the color of his shirt. You know, I mean,
I've done that, yeah.
Or he got a haircut and it looks much better, you know, and I wouldn't focus so much on his body language or what he was saying. I would keep trying to see the good. Or sometimes somewhere in that tirade of blabble of words, there was something that I could pick out of it and learn. And you have to train yourself to do that.
Yeah. And I found it helpful to have 3 or 4 things, like even especially if you're in a situation where you're just not able to find anything good about what's happening in that moment. So you can remove yourself from the situation in a way and think about something positive, like what makes you happy. I like puppies. So I just imagine myself holding a puppy or a kitten or a baby or something that, you know, that really just captures your whole attention and begins to, you know, shift that from, oh my gosh, here's this person screaming at me, to, oh my God, a puppy, you know, and because there's a joyful sense of something that comes with puppies and kittens and babies are always my favorite.
Yes, right.
But having some of those things, whether it's a favorite memory at the beach with somebody or, you know, your grandchild or something that you can immediately move to that begins to shift you from that cortisol stress state and that place where you're moving toward degeneration because you're feeding yourself stress and you're in that loop, to one where you're coming into that place of more of joy, of buoyancy, even of vitality. Choose some of those. And when you're driving, think about puppies, or, you know, think about happy thoughts, or go and find good news to think about. Who helped you? Who helped who today? You know, you can always find great things on the internet if you're not looking for the junk. Like there was somebody posted one the other day of it was a group that went in and rescued an elephant from a really bad situation. And to think, you know what, these are people that did not have to do this for this elephant, but look at what we can do that is filled with love, and to focus on those kinds of things so that you're really intentionally moving yourself into a feedback loop that supports your best health and regeneration.
And oftentimes I give people something that they can hold on to, because a lot of people have their imagination trained right out of them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so I give them a bracelet or their wedding ring or something that when they feel that, and you know what it feels like when you start getting that adrenaline rush or that constant cortisol drip is bringing you down. If you just touch something and it takes you to those feelings, to those memories. And then you get to the point where you don't need to touch it anymore.
Right.
But it's all a matter of training yourself. And Doc, that book that I'm reading, all the things that you should do to have a healthy body are the same things that you need to do to have a healthy mind. You know, they totally coincide with each other.
And they're all the things that, you know, when you get one of those horrible diagnoses, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, all these things, more and more, I mean, it didn't used to be. It used to be like, oh, just take this medicine, keep eating ice cream, it's no big deal. But, you know, more and more, it's all the things they say to do to begin to repair the damage and support health, are the things that if you did them now to begin with, you'd probably keep yourself from getting to that state. So, and especially knowing those things in your family that your family tends to be more susceptible to. So, diabetes is one of those things that if insulin resistance in your family is something that happens a lot, either because of family habits or because of genetics or because of something, like being extra mindful about not going to stress through sugar foods, and finding course correcting for those particular things. If heart disease is a problem in your family, what are some of the things that contribute to that you do that you can begin to change? One of them, on an emotional sense, is to go from anger to love. And that's, it's because anger, if you can feel, I'm a really kinesthetic. So I can feel what's happening in my body with different emotions, with different energies and different things. And when you get angry, if you can feel in your body, you can feel your heart contracting and constricting.
Yes.
When you are in that state of joy or happiness, you can feel it relaxing and opening. So, doing more of those things that relax and open, and less of those things that contract. Oh, and that brings me to one other thing that it's not actually, there's no real name for it, but softening.
Yes.
Your body, softening your heart, softening your muscles, especially at night when you go to sleep, softening your belly, softening your colon, like your internal organs.
Because and that's a big part of meditation.
It is, but we habitually hold stress in our organs and in our muscles and in our nerves. And if you can spend time during the day as you're going to bed at night, consciously relaxing, not just, your outside of your body or the muscles, which we kind of get used to because we're taught to do that in like end of yoga class and stuff. But imagine like relaxing your liver. And you don't even have to know that much about how to do it, but because your body knows what your liver is. But if you, and I like soften better than relax, but if you soften your liver, and you just let it be in that more expansive state, and then your pancreas, and then your kidneys, whatever it happens to be. It's really amazing how much stress, like tension, deeply held chronic tension that we don't even know that we have, you can begin to release. And that's another powerful way to shift the internal feedback loops in your body, because they're so complicated that, you can't just touch one thing and like have A do B. I mean, A affects everything, and B affects everything. And so you can't necessarily be spot on with something, but if you can do some of these larger things of the big shift from stress toward regeneration, it's very powerful what you can do in your body, in your mind, and in your life.
And that's the self-care routine that we should be practicing. It's okay to get your hair cut and your nails done. That's exterior self-care, and it does nothing for your mind. So you really need to and we're not taught this, and that's why it's so important that we have conversations like this, so that you start focusing inside instead of outside. Because everything on the outside is so because of what's on the inside.
Yes.
So it's, I don't know, one of the sayings that Wayne Dyer, I know you've heard me say this before, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
They do.
If you start focusing on your own self-care, the way that you are taking care of your body, mind, and spirit, whether you believe in a God or the universe or whatever, all those things come together to help you be the person you're supposed to be, and the best inside and out, and which helps you fulfill your purpose. It helps you know what your purpose is, for goodness sake. And it allows you to think of all these things that you don't think about when you're rush, adrenaline, stress, mechanical, really. And the worst part is it doesn't take that long to do. That little bit of self-care that you were talking about, you could do that in 15 minutes when you first lie down to sleep.
Yeah, you can't. And one of the complications, the hard things about this, I think, is that we are conceptual beings. Like humans, we don't live in reality. We live in our idea of what reality
Right.
is. And
That's
so
right.
oftentimes it's not like an animal, they've got their physical reality, and most of them are living in that physical reality, and they don't have much of a conception of reality beyond that physical reality that we know of anyway. But human beings, like, we have all these ideas about right and wrong and good and bad and what reality should be, and who's doing it right and who's not doing it right, and how I'm doing it right and how I'm not doing it right. And so we externalize a lot of things out into the world and out onto other people, and are trying to operate based on what our conception of reality should be, when really, if you pay attention to your body will tell you what is good for you. Your body will tell you what's not good for you. And I mean this specifically when we talk about conception of reality and the body, is oftentimes in thoughts and emotions. Like, we have ideas, especially now when like everybody is into the culture wars and all this stuff, how things are supposed to be. And if I am angry about the right things, then I'm doing good in the world. But if you look at your body, when you're angry, whether you're angry at site at A or B or C or D or E or F,
it doesn't matter.
Or you're operating in fear about A or B or C or D or E, F, or you are being intolerant about A or B or C or D or E or F, or non-compassionate or whatever, your body doesn't really care what your opinion is about the thing that you're angry about. That's a mental conception. Your body experiences it as anger, which is a feedback loop that is destructive to the body itself.
Just as fear.
Yeah, just like fear, just like jealousy, just like hatred and anger and non-compassion and all of these things. And if you're compassionate about something, your body doesn't care if it's A, B, C, or D. Your body says, oh, this is compassion. This releases these hormones. This is a regenerative state. So one of the things that I would love for people to do is, I'm a big believer in, you can have all of your own opinions. It doesn't really matter. I don't care what you think about particularly. But if you begin to think about how the ways that you think about things, like, you can have something that you value, but how can you value it, express it, experience it, and experience other people from a place of regeneration and regenerative emotions, rather than one from destruction? And Mother Teresa said this really well. She didn't relate it specifically this way, but she said, I'm never going to go to an anti-anything protest, because anti-anything is all about the anger and the rage and the this and the that and the conflict, which is inherently degenerative to a body, to a system, to a society, to anything. It's inherently disintegrating and degenerating. But she said, if you have a pro thing, and she was specifically talking anti-war, pro-peace, that was the context of the quote. If you have a pro-peace march, I will be there, because that is, it's an aspirational, emotional movement that is actually beneficial to the body, beneficial to societies, beneficial to things. And we're not very good at trying to create change from the positive.
No,
we are very good at pointing fingers and making blame and getting angry and saying, I don't want that, without being able to define what it is that we do want. So my challenge is to begin to frame things in a way of what you do want, and cultivating the emotions that support that. And then extending those emotions to everybody, whether they believe in what you believe in or not. Because if we were all operating from a higher regenerative emotional state, we'd be able to solve problems in a regenerative way. And that, I think, would be a game changer for our planet and for us individually.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution.
Yeah, and don't focus on the solution from a place of
negative,
stress.
right.
Focus on the solution from, like, how do we expand freedom? How do we expand compassion? And what does it really mean, to have the thing that you want? And can you have that from this positive emotional state? Because if you can't, that's telling. That's the addiction to the cortisol.
Right.
Yeah. and to the
Oh,
idea.
I like that very much. I'll take that challenge.
Me too. All right, so I think we're out of time. So what we've got coming up next time, if you're watching these live, it would be the second Tuesday in June. And do you have what we're talking about?
Well, we were supposed to talk about feminine energy back in May around Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And this subject is near and dear to me, but it's also so important in the way the world is today. And it's tied into everything that we've talked about so far,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah.
So I think let's bring back feminine energy, that
Okay.
topic, and talk about that next time.
All right. Well,
So that's June what? Let me look.
I don't know, the second Tuesday in June, 2 o'clock.
I'm going to look real quick.
Okay.
Real quick. June 7th.
Okay.
No,
June 7th. Oh.
June 14th.
Okay, June 14th. We will see you back here on June 14th. If you're catching this on the podcast, these may or may not be in order. So just look around for that. Life is too short to be stressed out. All right. Well, thank you. It's been wonderful talking with you. And it's always I just really enjoyed these conversations.
Me too. Good.
All right. So everybody remember that your choices create your future. So choose wisely and have a beautiful day. Oh, that's our cue. That's recording.
The dogs know when we're finished, I guess.
The dog does know when we're finished. Uh-oh. See if we can stop our live feed now.
What's the matter? That was really good.
Trying to figure out if we're still end stream. We can't end these streams at the same time. All right. Very good.